something most probably the patent writers have added into it.
So a plasma, like a plasma in terms of my definition, would be a atom with the electron below ground level state, which is all the way from ground level state all the way into the proton, which would become the initial fundamental plasma. Is that correct?
Can you explain what you call a ground state?
Ground level state is the state in which science today tells us the electron can no longer go further down due to the Coulomb barrier. And with a certain catalyst.
The electron can literally even re-enter the proton.
Right, due to the catalyst of removing that Coulomb barrier.
This is totally something which we know. If you change the gravitational magnetic field of the electron, which can be done, we call it interatomic fusion. So you can bring the gravitational magnetic field of the electron in balance or equal to the electromagnetic gravitational field of what do you call it, magnetic field of the proton, by releasing it, by releasing more of the what we call the principal matter. And this, in one of the papers I've written, we call it interatomic fusion, which is a more practical way of creating fusion. So zero state level is meaningless. As much as a neutron divides into a proton and electron, you can create a condition where electron can be re-entered into back to proton. You won't get the same level neutron level because you lost some energies at the beginning of the division. But there is nothing called the zero level or ground level energy, that the electron cannot go any further. This is the old theory. Now we understand the principle. This is meaningless.
So the basically further, the electron is closer to. Sorry.
The electron can be at any closer or further from a proton. The position of the electron, or what I call the range with the electron, can move close to and further from the proton, is entirely depends on the amount of the principal matter which was left in electron and proton at the point of the division. So depending on all the material which is left at the division, at the time of the division, decides the what do you call it, the bandwidth of the motion of the electron. And all electrons don't have the same bandwidth, and all the protons don't create the same gravitational magnetic field strength. So there is a spectrum. There is not the physicality of the restriction on exact amount. In one of the papers I've written, I have I think it's even in book 3 or book 2, somewhere I refer to that atomic structure in this what we call universe creates the bandwidth of the electron in respect to proton. In different environments of different gravitational magnetic field, this bandwidth could be totally different. So what the proton creates as a maggrav and what the electron creates as maggrav according to what they receive at the time of division as a source dictates this bandwidth. So principally what we've seen with GANs, state of matter, you can dictate this bandwidth, and in what we call interatomic fusion. Interatomic fusion is much easier than the present fusion technology they are trying to do, where the electron itself is within the Coulomb barrier of the atom, where when you try to do fusion, or what they call the hot or cold fusion, you have to cross a stronger barrier. So This is an old technology. Pardon?
You can remove the barrier with different environments, as in different elements, correct?
Yes. We've seen this. We've seen this in some tests. We see it not physically. We see changes which we don't expect, and we understand it could be the what do you call it? The background to the electron remerging into the proton. The energy release is minute but is effective. So in a way, if you consider like get a glass of water and warm it up and put a sugar block in it, in a right cold environment, the block stays as a block. As you warm it up, you create an environment that the sugar dilutes and mixes in the water and you don't see it. So you have, if you create the same kind of magnetic gravitational strength of the atom in your reactor, the plasma of the electron will mix with the plasma of a proton. So is creating the environment of.
But would that be the definition of a plasma?
Then you have a new plasma. Then you have a new neutron.
Right.
Pardon?
Which is stronger than if the electron was in the outer shell instead of melded with the proton.
It was what? I missed it.
A stronger emission of rays.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. What happens is that we consider that the principal matter of electron will join, or because it's of the same source, will rejoin the principal matter of the proton, which is a larger mass or bigger amount. So you should not see such a big difference. It's exactly like what you observe as a neutron. So the plasma of the new neutron from the re-emergence or fusion of the electron to proton should be more or less just under a normal neutron. So you create a condition, you create an environment for that the plasma of the new entity is the same as a neutron, where electron merges. We call this interatomic fusion. This is a more appropriate way to create energy or release energy, because you can bring the electron closer or further from the proton as you need or as you want, according to the environment you create for that position to be dictated. We see this in galaxies quite regularly. We see this in emergence and division of stars in galaxies, and the same with galaxies in the universe. So it's just a parallel. If you look at it in a given time, the book number 4, which is coming out, is written. Hopefully we can get it out soon. This we explain that, for example, the position of the Earth in respect to the Sun is not what we see. Earth in due time will lose some of its gravitational magnetic field strength, and it will go back and rejoin the Sun, where it came from originally. So as the gravitational magnetic field of the Earth changes, reduces, or becomes in a way irrelevant to the magnetic gravitational field of the Sun, it will get what you call fused back in. It's a natural fusion process, and I'll explain this in the book clearly how it happens. So there cannot be any difference in the atomic structure as well.
Okay, so that is the way that nature works then, by creating the neutron, well, a different type of neutron through that kind of a process.
Yes, but the neutron itself, we call it a neutron, it's a plasma.
Right.
It's a plasma which itself, somewhere down the line, was created from a division. The term neutron has to be redefined as a balanced maggraph, or I call it as a gap in the book number 1 or 2, we call it as a gap. It's a spacing which allows different plasma of protons to find their distance in the structure of molecular or atomic structure. Then when that gap, or one of the electrons or the protons moves, which forces a division, neutron, due to its change of environment, changes its maggraph, and it divides into electron and proton. The process is very clear now that how what do you call it, a neutron tends or happens to be in the center of atomic structure.
So that's why. Sorry, that's why bringing different elements into matter is just a matter of making the correct gap. Is that right?
That's all it is, because it's not creating the gap. The gap is created because of the forces of the protons, and in that gap allows a neutron to have a space to accommodate itself as a balancing between the two, because neutron has its own maggraph, and in conjunction with the protons, this decides the position of it. Some of the things which we see in nuclear fission is when the atom divides, how electrons, protons, and neutrons take position in a new division. And then you see that neutron is literally, with a small amount, is the same as a proton. But
the neutron is supposedly
balancer. It plays a gapper in the process.
Right, because the neutron's a dipole, so it's holding in protons and able to expel the electron as well. Is that right?
This terminology has no meaning for me. So okay. The way I look at it is it's a balancer. It's something which is there to create a balance between the protons, or the protons' magnetic gravitational field create a position for neutron to be there. And then in turn, because neutron itself, it creates its own maggraph, when the protons or one of the electrons moves from outside rings, or for whatever reasons merges with another one, what do you call it, with another atom, or shares, it forces it changes the position of the protons internally, and that change forces if a neutron is going to release or divide into two parts of electron and proton. With universal, what do you call it, phenomena in galaxies. This is what I call very much down to the basics of the nuclear physics, and understanding that even you call neutron neutral, if you remove a neutron, you'll find the atomic structure will not have the same property. That's why we have the isotopes in different shape and forms. So neutron still dictates, has its own gravitational magnetic field, but it needs to be there as a stopgap, or a gap to be there as a backup, because neutron itself, within the structure of the central process of protons, releases a lot of energy into the system. It's another plasma. It releases its center, which is its principal matter, constantly releases energy or magnetic gravitational field into the atomic structure. It's not there, it's not bipole. Bipoleness is meaningless, because it's a plasma, is active, and by the same measure, it behaves like a star. Its gravitational magnetic field has a direct effect. Pardon?
We're just really seeing the outer shell when we look at a neutron.
I can't get it. You keep on getting cut off.
Sorry. So basically, when we're talking about a neutron, we're still talking about matter. So
yes,
we're basically still just seeing the outer shell and the matter form of the neutron.
Yes, but that what we see as out is just what I call the outer atmosphere. It's like upper atmosphere of the Earth. Is what we see as neutron is the point of its interaction with the magnetic gravitational field of the plasma of other protons or proton in that structure, in the central structure. It cannot be something neutral. This neutrality or bipolarity is meaningless, because this entity in due course, when the environment changes within the structure of the atom, it divides itself to a proton and electron, or is forced to find its balance, that it releases some of its plasma to keep the balance of the atomic structure, and that released plasma becomes an electron. This is to rewrite all these physics books. A lot of principles has been accepted, which has no true ground in the physics. Neutron is not, it cannot be bipolar. It's just something written to explain what they cannot understand. It's like saying that the sun has no power in the solar system. These neutrons are effective, powerful sources, which are part of the structure, but they are accommodated in the, or they find their position in stopgap. Something which is fundamental, and I try to keep on remembering to write in one of the books, and I forget, is that a proton or electron or a neutron, these are packages which the magnetic gravitational field of this universe allows for a package to exist. So the package of plasma of a proton or an electron or a neutron is what is dictated by the central gravitational field force in the center of the universe. It's not just random. It's part of the totality, that this amount of principal matter, which can release so much, behaves this way. So it cannot be any different. Neutron is on its own, and it plays a role in the electron. It cannot be on its own doing nothing. As I said, you say the star in the solar system does nothing. It's meaningless.
So is it just the quantity of the, as you said before, it's the quantity and the entity?
Yes.
So when we talk about the neutron, can you have multiple neutrons without protons or electrons?
It can be done. It can be done. In some of the structures, nuclear structures, when you look, protons don't sit all in one in a given position. They find even gap or distance without any electron in respect to each other, because the totality of the balance of the plasma of what do you call it, central core, which counts. So how can they be in that position if they don't have, or they don't release both the gravitational magnetic field? A neutron is an active part of atomic structure, opposite to what is being taught at the moment in the textbooks. It is a very, what do you call it, active part, and it has a direct involvement in isotopes. If the physicists start looking into the magnetic gravitational field of the neutron, they will find out a lot of mysteries which is sitting within the structure of isotopes. The isotopes are mainly dictated by the positioning of the neutrons more than anything else.
So you could take another neutron and add it to an atom and create a different isotope, right?
Of course, we know that this is a known fact. This is what is there. But the thing is, the magnetic gravitational field of the atom itself dictates for its balancing. If it's extracting or absorbing a neutron or rejecting one.
So you'd be changing
because it
the
has to
element.
have this balance. It has to have gravitational. Yes, it's both ways. It's not just absorbing. As we know, neutrons are released when it's not needed. This is one of the biggest problem which Keshe Foundation has in military. As you know, we produce a lot of plasmas in different quantities as we need, especially when we used to use nuclear material. So in matter of few cents, you can create a nitrogen bomb, neutron bombs, and you can create oxygen bombs. Once you understand the concept, the neutron bombs and the hydrogen bombs become meaningless, because the next level is more powerful, because you can release a large number of energies of bigger atoms. The structure of atom can be changed without creating any heat or creating any what do you call it, disturbances in the environment. If you use interatomic fusion, as much as you can bring an electron to be absorbed by the proton, within the center of the core of an atom, you can facilitate the protons to rejoin a neutron. This releases huge amount of energy. This uses energies which mankind cannot have the comprehension of, because the energy within the central principal matter of a neutron and a proton, if used or you create the right environment, can be released in one go. This is what I keep on repeating in some of my talks, and it's getting missed and it's not understood fully. Let's take an atom of hydrogen. The principal matter, the principle in the proton, the principal magnetic field in the proton, in the center of proton, has been there for billions of years, and it's going to be there for billions of years. So the tangibility and the visibility of the plasma of hydrogen, proton, is there for billions of years. So the source is continuously releasing, and a source which can release enough energy to be visible or detectable for billions of years must be massive. This is what physicists don't understand, and they keep on talking about these upper quarks or down quarks and whatever rubbish they came up with. The center of a plasma of a proton, there is such a vast amount of gravitational magnetic field or principal matter in a compact form sits that can guarantee a continuous life for that plasma for billions of years in the environment of an atom. So you release that in one instance, then you know what sits inside. That's one of the reasons governments are pushing to bring Keshe Foundation down, because we have opened what they thought cannot be known by man. but we use it for peaceful purposes.
Right, we
use
don't
it
have to think about the war aspect of it. There's the other side of everything where if you don't include war, it can still solve all our problems.
Yes, but you have to go a step further. Even the energy within the center of the plasma of the electron, which that electron uses more energy than the proton itself, is much more than the proton. This is another concept which is misunderstood. If you look at the electron, which is moving so rapidly around the proton, it has an energy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Hello.
hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you consider the energy which, or the magnetic gravitational field, amount of gravitational magnetic field are released by electron to be in motion for billions of years around the proton, then you understand even the electron, principal matter, due to its compactness, can be much more than the principal matter within the plasma of a proton. Partially, the principal matter dictates the bandwidth of the electron in respect to proton. But that bandwidth to be kept, there is a need for a continuous release of gravitational magnetic field from the electron. So you release this amount of energy of the electron, which sits in its principal matter, in one go. You release billions of years of motion, energy for motion. So this is what is getting missed in the world of physics. We just look at something, we say, oh, there is an electron. As I said in my lectures, some people have been. I put a bottle of water on the table, and I put 2 glasses. And I empty the bottle in two glasses in 2 different measures and said, this is a proton, this is electron. But in reality, there is more in electron, but it's a more compact environment. It's more squeezed to hold. So one of the questions which is fundamental to ask and answer is, maybe the energy which is contained within the electron is much more than what we think and is than a proton itself, even the dimension is smaller. The present nuclear industry doesn't answer this. Pardon?
Because physical dimension really means nothing in terms of a principal plasma. Is that right?
No, nothing. Yeah, it's just like a black hole. The size of it in the center, or what we call a principal star, is irrelevant to what is released, and it controls the whole galaxy and the universe. So, in a way, I always consider that electron holds much more principal matter, stronger principal matter in the center. So both of them, even if you look at the structure of the plasma of a proton, this entity is there for billions of years, and for something to be there as a plasma, to show itself, to create gravity and magnetic field that it creates, is what I call as atmosphere, that we can physically see it or detect it. Then you can imagine how much energy is sitting in that center. Billions of years, and now you consider the motion of a small bandwidth of electron in respect to proton, and you call it electric current, and we use it. We say millions of it gives us whatever, joules or so many kilowatts or whatever. Now open that energy in the plasma. Then you see the mystery of the universe. It is enough energy in a proton or in an electron to give a man's life energy what is needed in a lifetime. You release billions of years. That motion doesn't happen on its own. We got habitually into the state because we don't understand this. Oh, electron moves around the proton. But that electron moving around proton needs gravitational magnetic field continuously to be released, that position is kept. Where does it come from? Both from the electron and both from, and this positioning is kept for billions of years. Now people have to start understanding how much energy sits, how much gravitational magnetic field sits within the structure of the electron. Is enough energy to whatever you need to use and eat for the rest of your life. Maybe generations, but we never looked into it. We looked at it because it's so small. It's so small, but it's there for billions of years. Measure how much energy is released by a proton and electron over billions of years, and then imagine how much you need to live. Then you understand we've been looking in the wrong direction in the world of science.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I appreciate that. It was really informative.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Could we understand the size of the electron as being very small because of the quantity of principal matter there is in the electron?
Quite possible. Certainly, yes.
And because the principal matter doesn't interfere directly, it's there, and it doesn't appear to us just because it is the principal matter with high level of energy.
Yeah, go back into what I put on the forum a few days ago. Define the energy, then you understand how. Energy is gravitational magnetic field in motion, magravs in motion, because it's got to be both of them for it to be an entity. So one of the principal things which I keep on re-emphasizing in the book and in my talks is stop thinking as a magnetic field. Think of the magnetic gravitational field is 2. So the energy amount, if it's compacted, if it's much more stronger, it has to be, what do you call it, smaller. Remember one point, the size of the plasma of a galaxy, the solar system, a planet, is not dictated mainly by the entity itself. It's dictated the magnetic gravitational field of the environment which that entity operates in. This is very much like you have a room full of balloons and you try to get another balloon inside the room. So the other balloons inside dictate what size this balloon can be. If it's too big, it can't come in. If it's small enough between the balloons, you can accommodate it. So why proton has such a large dimension in comparison to the electron? Because, or does it get dictated by the energy of the electron itself? Electron has a very direct control over the size of the proton, not the other way around.
Yes, and the mass of the proton towards the mass of the electron seems to be in the favor of the proton. But even though the quantity of principal matter in the electron is greater, certainly the matter part.
Yes, but there is a measure of the principal matter, the electron. The amount of the principal matter inside the electron, which dictates the mass. It could be much more compact, but the mass is the balance between the what we call magnetic field and gravitational field. I've explained that in the book number 1. So if you put that together, there's a high chance, I try to find a parallel. If you look at the solar system and look at the Saturn and Jupiter, they are huge, but their size is dictated by their position in respect to the sun. As over time they lose, or the gravitational magnetic field of the sun pulls them to themselves, they get stripped of the gases around them, and they become the size of Earth as they reach the position. This is what I call a rainfall system, exactly like as the magnetic gravitational field of the sun release themselves. As they lose their strength in the boundary of the plasma, they rain back in, and they become part of the outer, planetary system, and that's why they're so big. But in fact, the gravitational magnetic field in center has been decided by the solid material inside it, which initially was like a Pluto. So internal mass decides what material is absorbed and what gravitational magnetic field and what size of the plasma of the planet will be in that position. The same thing happens with the electron and proton. We see similar structures in the universe in respect to suns and the galaxies in the galaxial system and in the universal system. We don't see, and what we see from the data which is coming from new planetary systems which are found in the galaxies, the position of the solar planetary system is dictated. You see more of them the further you are from the center. And then these stars which gather a strength, or they are much more compact, or they have a higher gravitational magnetic field of the principal matter, they tend to be closer to the center of the galaxy. And planetary systems are always on the wings, not in the center. The same thing, the same principle applies.
Okay.
So, Mr. Keshe, would you say there's likely not much in the way of life as we know it in the inner planets of the galaxy? The inner arms, rather, of the galaxy?
Life can exist in any shape or form anywhere, even in the center of the dark principal matters of the galaxies. Life has no limitation, depends what you want to call life. We look at life or existence is, to me, in what, even as a single plasma, can dictate its position and its motion and its interaction with other things. So I was actually writing a paper which is going to be released hopefully very soon in the next few weeks, that is called The Origin of the Creation on Earth, how the first life ever started on this planet. I explain how, and even how muscles and tissues and motion of muscles and tissues were started on this planet. Because now we have created an environment very similar to the start of the creation of life on Earth in laboratory condition. I showed it to our guys in the Keshe Foundation team working with us a few weeks ago. This has been going on for about 2 years now. The process is ongoing for 2 years. Then you understand that life, or what I call repeating and holding and reacting to environment, what we call life, it can be in the center of a principal matter, in the center of what we call a black hole. Because in that condition, in that strength, the matter or the entity has found a way to move. This myth of life being exclusivity of certain planets is out of the window. In fact, I'm pretty sure very soon, very soon, shorter than most of people can think, we can confirm existence of intelligence or life, whatever you call it, in the center of the stars or in the stars or on the surface of the stars. Because that environment allows the creation or existence of certain materials which can, or certain plasmas which can operate and function in that environment. This is what we said, life cannot exist at the bottom of the seas and life cannot exist at other positions. Understanding the state of GANs, it puts this through the window, is finished. Life is not exclusivity. Life as something who interacts with his environment and can respond to his environment in his position and maybe dictate the position, his own position, in his own environment. They can exist anywhere in the universe, even between the planetary system in the open spaces of what they call galaxies and the others, because that environment allows this. And we've seen this in the new detailed videos from satellites by NASA and other organizations. Life is not what we call is exclusive. There is in this universe, there are entities, single or multiple, or as an organic like us, or as organs, not organic like us, exist in that environment because they can use it for their own existence. This exclusivity of intelligence and us being the superior entity is we are at the bottom of the pit in so many ways.
Yeah. Okay.
It's hard to understand, but this is a fact.